Yes, again, it is a great pleasure for me to make a scene-setting presentation today. And this is my first opportunity to visit Cambodia, this beautiful country. So I'm very much excited to be here. And today, I'm going to make a presentation about opportunities and challenges in carbon neutrality pathways for ES region. Next one, please. As emphasized by Secretary General of ASEAN and other ministers, we had a historic COP meeting last November and Glasgow Climate Pact, and it adopted very ambitious Glasgow Climate Pact, pursuing efforts to limit temperature increase within 1.5 degrees after pre-industrial level. And also, in order to do so, we are expected to pursue global emission mitigation pathways, say 45% reduction from now to 2030, and carbon neutrality by 2050. That is a very challenging target. And also, the Glasgow Climate Pact is urging parties to review their NDC so that their NDCs would be in line with Paris Agreement and to submit revised NDC by the end of this year. And also, Glasgow Climate Pact urged countries to phase down the unabated coal power as soon as possible. So, next one, please. And talking about carbon neutrality by 2050, there are various ways for analysis. And typical one is IEA's Net Zero Emission 2050, published last June. And this is some sort of top-down analysis, backcasting from global 2050 carbon neutrality. As you can see in the right column, NZT scenarios, you see the drastic reduction of the fossil fuels from now to 2030, 40, and 50. And then significant increase of renewables from now to 2050. And overall energy demand will be also much less compared with so-called steps, that is reference scenarios taking into account the current NDCs by the parties. Next one, please. The other analysis is a more, how can I say, bottom-up analysis and conducted by IEJ, Institute of Energy Economics of Japan. And it has presented two sets of scenarios, that is reference scenarios and also advanced technology scenarios. In the advanced technology scenarios, they assume the intensified energy efficiency efforts and also increase of the clean energy technologies as much as possible while ensuring energy security. And in that scenario, the CO2 emissions is not, say, complete zero in 2050. Rather, it is almost the same level in 2050. Of course, it is significantly lower compared with the current level, but it is not completely carbon neutral. And in that case, as you can see in the left graph, the contribution of the fossil fuels still remain even in 2050. Next one, please. And before and after the COP26, increasing number of ASEAN countries have announced their carbon neutrality goals by 2050 for Cambodia, and 2065 for Indonesia, and 2060 for other countries. So the target year for carbon neutrality varies. But overall, ASEAN countries are aiming at carbon neutrality goals around or after mid-century. Next one, please. Next one, please. And with that in mind, the ERIA has conducted, in collaboration with IEJ, Institute of Energy Economics of Japan, the carbon neutrality scenario for the ASEAN region, assuming that ASEAN region will achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. And the black dotted line is reference scenarios or BAU scenarios. Under that scenario, the CO2 emission will continuously grow from now to 2050. And our main scenario, 2060 carbon neutrality scenario, is represented in the green lines. And under that scenario, we will see continuous growth towards 2030 and the peak out around 2030 and going down to 2050. And our main scenario also incorporate the contribution of so-called carbon sinks, like a land use or forest or something. So energy-related CO2 emission does not need to be complete zero by 2050 because we can take into account the carbon sinks. And if we do not include the contribution of carbon sinks or forestry, then the mitigation pathway will go through yellow line. And under yellow line, we will achieve carbon neutrality in 2060. And the red line shows more stringent carbon mitigation scenarios. So the emission increase from now to 2030 will be much lower compared with our main scenario, and then going to 2060 carbon neutrality with taking into account carbon sinks. So for carbon neutrality, we have developed 3 scenarios. Next one, please. And in our scenario, we have incorporated various technologies such as solar PV and onshore and offshore wind and hydro, geothermal, biomass, nuclear, CCUS, hydrogen, ammonia, and DACs and BECCS, and based on various assumptions, including the solar condition or wind condition or storage capacity and so on. So next one, please. And this is vision towards about a power generation in the ASEAN region from now to 2060 with carbon sinks and without carbon sinks. And in both cases, as you can see, renewable energy become the main power source in the carbon neutrality 2060 scenarios, accounting for 54 to 56% of the total power generation in 2060. And it deserves attention that we are not necessarily assuming 100% renewable in 2060. Rather, we will also incorporate the contribution of such technologies as hydrogen and ammonia and also CCUS by 2060. And in particular, hydrogen and ammonia, including co-firing, will be a part of decarbonization scenarios of power sector after 2040. And you can see the dark pink and shallow pink, that is a contribution of hydrogen and ammonia. Their contribution will become very much visible after 2060, 50, and 60. Okay, next one, please. And also, it deserves attention that in the short and midterm, efficient gas-fired power plants will carve CO2 emissions from fossil fuel power generation. And in 2030, you see increased contribution of natural gas and replacing coal. That is quite important because in this region, coal is still very much dominant power sources. So fuel switching from coal to natural gas using efficient gas-fired power generation is very pragmatic and low-hanging fruit for reducing CO2 emissions in the power sector. And in the longer term, CCUS and co-firing with ammonia and hydrogen, and eventually 100% ammonia and hydrogen will play a vital role. And this is also very much important messages because given in this region, fossil fuel will continue to play a very much important role for the energy mix. So we have to consider how to reduce CO2 emissions from fossil fuel sectors and also neutralize CO2 emissions from fossil fuel power generation in particular. So we cannot pretend that fossil fuel does not exist. We need to consider how to make them compatible between the existence of fossil fuel power and carbon neutrality. So next one, please. And of course, carbon neutrality is not a free lunch, and then we have to face increasing marginal abatement cost for achieving carbon neutrality. And this scenario shows marginal CO2 abatement cost is more expensive in the case without carbon sinks. because you have to reduce the CO2 emissions to completely zero by 2060. In the case, our reference, our main scenario, achieving carbon neutrality in 2060 with carbon sinks, the marginal abatement cost is much lower, $340 per ton CO2, but still it is much more expensive than the current figure. And additional annual cost from the baseline to the 2000 carbon neutrality scenario will be between 3.6% and 5.2% of the ASEAN GDP in 2060. So next one, please. And one thing which we are deeply concerned is the impact of the ongoing Ukraine war and its impact to the international energy market. And ongoing gas price hikes amid the Ukraine war could discourage fuel switching from coal to natural gas, which has been low-hanging fruit for mitigation option for the region. And as a result, coal could stay longer than previously anticipated in the Asian energy mix. So that would delay the progress towards carbon neutrality. So the current natural gas price hike is adverse effect for the regional endeavor for carbon neutrality. Next one, please. And in particular, the harsh competition between European region and the ASEAN region over a limited amount of LNG cargo is a grave concern, because European region is shifting their gas demand from Russian pipeline gas to LNG cargo. And since European companies has better purchasing power, they're willing to pay more expensive price. So as a result, increasing number of Asian countries are obliged to give up or reduce their procurement of LNG. So that will delay the fuel switching from coal to natural gas. So in order to alleviate such concern, we need to have more investment for natural gas upstream, midstream, and downstream. So, and natural gas is also very much important for enhancing penetration of intermittent renewables, because that can offer very much flexible backup power. So in order to achieve a longer-term carbon mitigation, we need to also overcome the ongoing energy crisis, in particular in the field of natural gas. So this is a big headache for this region. So next one, please. And another thing I'd like to draw your attention is, as presented in our scenario, Asian energy mix will not go to 100% renewable overnight. And actually, they are going to deploy various decarbonization technologies. And also from now to a decarbonized future, we need to go through energy transition, assuming the remaining big share of fossil fuels in the power mix. So in order to do so, we need to have the early and partial and deep decarbonization technologies of fossil power generation in the phased manner in the region. And the green one in the left column is the very green technologies. But in order to reduce our emissions from business as usual to the reasonable level, we need partial emission reduction, early emission reduction, and partial emission reduction, such as co-firing, and deep emission reduction, such as CCUS. Those technologies are indispensable. And financial institutions and business communities and policymakers need to know which technologies should be considered for financial arrangements, and which technologies could offer business opportunities during the decarbonization process, and which technologies could be relevant for just and orderly transition. So next one, please. So with that in mind, the previous one, please. Yeah, with that in mind, in collaboration with Asia Transition Finance Study Group, ERIA has developed the first list of transition technologies, covering transition technology in upstream, such as fuel production, and power sector, accounting for more than 50% of the total CO2 emissions. That include CCGT and ammonia and hydrogen co-firing, and also CCUS and so on. And these technology lists will be further expanded to other sectors such as midstream, downstream, and end-use sectors. And in considering these technologies, we have taken into account 6 major perspectives, such as emission impact, lock-in prevention, and also the DNSH, that is the do not significant harm to the environment protection, and also affordability, reliability, maturity, and social acceptance. And this technology list is to be finally published towards the Asia Green Growth Partnership Ministerial meeting to be held in Tokyo the end of this month. Next one, please. And also, given that fossil fuel will stay in the power mix in this region, CCUS is anyway indispensable. So with this in mind, the Japanese government and ERIA has established Asia CCUS network, aiming at CCUS knowledge and experience sharing, and also common rules and developing projects, and realizing storage network throughout Asia. And up to now, we have had the first Asia CCUS network last year in June, and we co-hosted by ERIA and METI, and the 4 workshops, and the capacity building courses and research work have been conducted up to now. So final slides, please. So this is my final slide. Next one, please. Yes. And in a nutshell, following the Glasgow Climate Pact, the ASEAN countries are making vigorous efforts for energy transition towards carbon neutrality. That is quite evident listening to the keynote speeches of the various, ministers from other member states. And pathways towards carbon neutrality could be diverse among countries. This is, again, the point emphasized by many keynote speakers. And each country's specific national circumstances must be taken into account. And availability, accessibility, and affordability of energy supply is the most fundamental requirement for the ASEAN countries. And in pursuing their respective carbon neutrality goals, the ASEAN countries need to explore a variety of options and utilize all fuels and all technologies. And that is a very much important point, not excluding particular option or not counting on only one technology. That is the most important part. And to make things more complicated, global energy crisis due to the Russia-Ukraine war is making simultaneous achievement of energy security and affordability and decarbonization more challenging, in particular for this region with a robust growth potential. And gas price hike could delay fuel switching. So timely investment for alleviating energy supply crunch is essential. And together with financing for green technologies, ASEAN region also needs proper finance for transition technologies for early, partial, and deep decarbonization of fossil fuel power generation in a phased manner. So that is, again, unique and very much important point to be emphasized by this region. So ASEAN region should advocate the necessity of stepwise and pragmatic energy transition and underpinning finance. And I attend various international energy-related conferences, and the voice of Western countries, including Europeans or Americans, are very strong. And but I think their energy transition pathway is their pathways, and energy situation between Western mature economy and the Asian economy with a robust economic growth potential is different. So Asian countries or ASEAN countries should make their own case in the international debate. Otherwise, the very, how can I say, one-sided argument could fly. For example, there should be no finance at all for the fossil fuel sectors. So that is not reflecting the energy reality in Asian region. And in order to avoid that situation, ASEAN and Asian countries need to speak out. And they need to speak out about the necessity of pragmatic and phased pathways towards the our common goals, namely carbon neutrality. So in today's session, in the 4 sessions, we will pick up these issues one by one. And I very much expect very much active exchange of views during that session. That ends my presentation. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.